Let me start with something that happened just a few weeks ago. In late March 2026, a NATO ally did something no country in the alliance had done in decades. It looked the United States of America directly in the eye and said no. Not a polite diplomatic "we have concerns," not a carefully worded statement from a junior minister, a flat, unambiguous no. Spain closed its airspace to American warplanes involved in military operations against Iran. It barred Washington from using jointly operated military bases on Spanish soil. Every flight plan linked to those operations, bombers, tanker aircraft, strike packages, was rejected. All of them. And when President Trump responded by threatening to cut off trade with Spain entirely, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez stood at a podium and said something that made headlines across every major news network in the world. "I'm not afraid." Because here's what most people completely missed in that story. They saw the political drama, the clash with Washington, the headlines about NATO friction. What they didn't see was the thing underneath all of it, a country that can actually back up those words. Because Spain said no to the United States, and it was able to say no. That's the difference. A small country with no real military weight says no to a superpower, and nothing happens. A country with Eurofighter squadrons, Patriot missile batteries, a modern blue water navy, 4,000 troops deployed across 15 countries, a defense budget racing toward 33 billion euros a year, and the entire alliance has to take notice. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why Spain is one of the most underestimated military powers in NATO today, and why the phrase medium power is starting to look very, very outdated. Let's start with something that surprises almost everyone. When analysts rank global military strength today, Spain consistently lands inside the top 15 worldwide, sometimes top 12. That's ahead of countries most people would instinctively assume are stronger. Yes, Spain, the country most people associate with afternoon naps, a 10 p.m. dinner time, and a football league so dominant it made the rest of Europe give up trying. Turns out they applied the same obsessive attention to their military. Right now, the Spanish armed forces consist of approximately 120,000 active military personnel across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. And here's something most people don't know. These are not conscripts filling quotas. Spain abolished mandatory military service back in 2001. Every single one of those 120,000 soldiers chose to be there. That number alone doesn't tell the story, because Spain also has roughly 4,000 troops deployed abroad in 15 countries simultaneously. Think about what that means. It means Spanish soldiers, sailors, and airmen are operating right now in Iraq, Lebanon, Latvia, the Balkans, the Horn of Africa, and elsewhere. That's not a country sitting behind its borders waiting for something to happen. That's a country that has built the logistical machinery to move forces across multiple continents and keep them there. Now let's talk about how those forces are actually structured, because the way Spain built its army is not what most people expect. If you picture the Spanish army and imagine Cold War-style tank columns lined up on a flat European plain, you're thinking about the wrong century. Spain doesn't fight like that. The Iberian Peninsula, mountains, plateaus, two coastlines, was never suited for Cold War tank columns. So Spain built something different. The centerpiece of Spain's armored capability right now is the Leopard 2E. If you know tanks, you already know the Leopard 2 family is one of the best main battle tanks ever built. The Spanish version, the 2E, is a locally modified variant developed in partnership with Germany, featuring enhanced protection and upgraded electronics. Spain currently operates around 300 of them. Now, if you remember the lessons from Ukraine, you know that tanks alone don't win modern battles. What wins modern battles is integration. Tanks working alongside infantry, drones, artillery, electronic warfare, and air support in a coordinated system. And Spain has been watching that lesson very carefully, which is why the Spanish army just committed to something that barely made the news outside defense circles. A 2-year, 45 million euro research and development contract to begin designing the successor to the Leopard 2E, not upgrading the current tank, designing the next one. That kind of long-range planning signals something important. It means Spain isn't thinking about its military in 5-year budget cycles. It's thinking in generational terms. Now, beyond the tanks, the Spanish army operates a substantial fleet of tracked and wheeled armored vehicles, infantry carriers, recon platforms, self-propelled artillery. Spain has spent years building exactly that kind of force. There's also the parachute brigade and other rapid reaction units, highly trained forces designed to deploy quickly when a crisis erupts somewhere NATO or the UN needs a response. If you remember the Balkans deployments of the 1990s, you already know Spain has a long history of sending those forces into difficult places and getting the job done. The real shock is what's happening above the ground. Look up from any major Spanish air base on a clear day and you might see something that would have seemed extraordinary just 15 years ago. A formation of Eurofighter Typhoons climbing out over the Atlantic, a maritime patrol aircraft banking over the Strait of Gibraltar, and very soon, a new generation of aircraft that will change the calculation entirely. The Spanish Air and Space Force is one of the most capable air arms in Southern Europe, and the story of how it got there is worth understanding. For decades, Spain built its air power around the F-18 Hornet. American aircraft, proven in combat, reliable and well understood. They served Spain well, but the F-18 era is ending. It's being replaced by something far more capable. Spain currently flies a growing fleet of Eurofighter Typhoons as its primary combat aircraft, a fourth-generation multi-role fighter that remains one of the most agile air superiority platforms in the world. But Spain isn't stopping at the Typhoon. Under two separate contracts, Halcon 1 and Halcon 2, Spain is receiving a total of 45 new Eurofighters, 20 under the first contract, 25 under the second. And in 2026 alone, the first 3 aircraft from the Eurofighter Tranche 4 program are being delivered. Tranche 4 is significant. These aren't incremental upgrades. They incorporate new radar systems, upgraded electronic warfare suites, expanded weapons compatibility, and connectivity improvements that make them part of a modern networked battle system rather than just fast aircraft flying around independently. In simple terms, a Tranche 4 Eurofighter doesn't just fight, it thinks. Now here's the piece of the Spanish Air Force that never gets enough attention: maritime surveillance. Spain is taking delivery this year of 3 C-295 Vigma aircraft. These are advanced maritime patrol platforms designed to scan the ocean, track submarines, monitor suspicious vessels, and protect the undersea infrastructure that the modern world depends on. If you remember what we said about Portugal's P-3C Orions patrolling the Atlantic, this is Spain doing the same thing, but covering the southern approaches, the Strait of Gibraltar, the western Mediterranean, and the waters between Europe and Africa. And that geography matters enormously, because they sit at one of the most strategically important choke points on Earth. We'll come back to that. But first, the part of Spain's military that most people still underestimate: the Navy. The Spanish Navy has a word for itself: armada. It's the same word the rest of the world borrowed in 1588 when Spain sent 130 ships toward England and terrified an entire continent. They lost that one. They've been improving ever since. The crown jewel is the F-100 frigate program. Spain's 5 F-100 Álvaro de Bazán-class frigates are considered by many naval experts to be among the best surface combatants in the world. Not in Europe, in the world. They're built around the same Aegis combat system used by the United States Navy. The same radar, the same missile launch infrastructure, the same networked architecture that allows a Spanish frigate to plug directly into an American carrier strike group and operate as if it were part of the same fleet. That integration matters more than any single weapon. Spain's F-100s can do exactly that. And in 2026, those frigates are being modernized. New electronic warfare systems, upgraded sensors, extended capability across the full spectrum of naval combat. Then there are the submarines. Spain operates a fleet of submarines built around the S-80+ class, a domestically designed and built diesel-electric boat that took years to develop and is now one of the most capable conventional submarines in European service. These submarines are designed for the Mediterranean and the the Atlantic approaches, stealthy, capable of extended patrols, and equipped for anti-submarine warfare, intelligence gathering, and precision strike missions. In the world of naval strategy, a submarine you can't find is a weapon that's always being used, simply by existing somewhere beneath the waves, and Spain's submarines are very good at being unfound. Beyond the frigates and submarines, the Navy operates a fleet of offshore patrol vessels, amphibious ships, and support platforms. When you add everything together, it's a serious blue water force capable of sustained operations far from home. Spanish frigates rotate through NATO's standing naval forces. They've operated in the North Atlantic, the Norwegian Sea, and the Mediterranean as part of the alliance's continuous presence patrols. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Spain significantly increased its naval contributions to NATO operations, sending ships to waters closer to the conflict and participating in exercises designed to practice exactly the kind of high-end naval warfare that used to seem hypothetical. It doesn't seem hypothetical anymore. And then there's what Spain is doing for Ukraine. This part of the story matters because it reveals something important about how Spain sees its role in the world. In March 2026, Volodymyr Zelensky flew to Madrid. It was his fourth visit to Spain since Russia's full-scale invasion began. And at the Moncloa Palace, Prime Minister Sanchez announced something significant: a new €1 billion military aid package for Ukraine in 2026. When you add up Spain's total contribution since February 2022, the number reaches nearly €4 billion. But the announcement wasn't just about money, because alongside the financial commitment, Spain and Ukraine signed a series of industrial cooperation agreements: joint manufacturing, co-production of drones and radar systems, agreements between Spanish defense companies like Canary Aerospace and Ukrainian missile and autonomous systems developers. What that means in practice is this: Spain isn't just writing checks and shipping old equipment. It's building a defense-industrial relationship with Ukraine that will outlast the current conflict. Ukraine gets Spanish ammunition, radars, and industrial capacity. Spain gets battlefield-tested Ukrainian expertise in drone warfare. The kind of practical knowledge that can only come from fighting a real war with real consequences every single day. That exchange is worth far more than any single weapons shipment. Now here's the part of Spain's story that most people don't know at all. And once you understand it, the geography of everything we've just talked about suddenly snaps into focus. Spain controls the Strait of Gibraltar. That's not a small thing. The Strait of Gibraltar is 8 miles wide at its narrowest point. 8 miles. That's narrower than some morning commutes, and Spain has been sitting on one side of it for centuries, quietly watching everything that moves. Oil tankers, container ships, military vessels, submarines, every single one. And Spain controls one side. But Spain's geographic advantage doesn't stop at the strait. Look at the map more carefully. The Canary Islands sit 100 kilometers off the northwest coast of Africa, right in the middle of shipping routes connecting Europe, West Africa, and the Americas. Spain controls them. The Balearic Islands, Majorca, Menorca, Ibiza sit in the center of the Western Mediterranean, commanding the sea lanes between France, Italy, North Africa, and the Middle East. Spain controls them. Ceuta and Melilla, two Spanish cities physically located on the African continent inside Moroccan territory, give Spain a permanent sovereign foothold in Africa itself. No other NATO country has that. And that's where the other thread of this story comes in. Because it's not just the United States that has complicated its relationship with Spain recently. Morocco has too. Picture this: January 2026, a rock barely the size of a football pitch. No trees, no roads, no people, just wind, salt, and a Moroccan flag planted in the dirt. Spanish special forces didn't send a diplomatic note, they sent helicopters. In 2002, the exact same thing happened. Moroccan soldiers landed on Perejil. Spain launched Operation Romeo Sierra. Commandos fast roped onto the island before dawn, and the whole thing was over in hours. Colin Powell, the American Secretary of State, famously called Perejil a stupid little island and said he initially thought it was a joke. Nobody's laughing now, because in January 2026, it happened again, and this time Washington wasn't available to mediate. They had their own problems with Madrid. Morocco called it an act of war. Spain called it Tuesday. Because the context has changed completely. In 2002, Spain and Morocco were managing a bilateral dispute. In 2026, they're managing something far more complicated. Because Perejil is not just about Perejil. It's about Ceuta and Melilla and Morocco's long-standing claim to those Spanish cities on African soil. It's about migration routes that have sent hundreds of thousands of people across the Mediterranean towards Spain in recent years. It's about energy corridors, about Western Sahara, about who gets to draw the map of the southern Mediterranean in the decade ahead. And in that context, Spain's military posture suddenly looks very different from a distance. Those Eurofighter squadrons are not just there for NATO exercises in the Baltic. Those new maritime patrol aircraft are not just scanning for submarines. Those Patriot batteries are not just pointed east toward Russia. Spain is watching multiple directions simultaneously. North toward NATO's eastern flank, east toward the Middle East, where it just told the United States to find another route, and south across the strait and into Africa, where the most complicated long-term challenges may be brewing. That kind of multi-directional strategic awareness is not something a medium power builds. That's something a country builds when it understands its position on the map very, very well. Let's bring it all together. Troops in 15 countries, 33 billion euros a year on defense and climbing, €1 billion committed to arming Ukraine, with an industrial partnership built alongside it. And when the United States asked to use its bases and its airspace, it said no, and backed it up. 500 years ago, Spain was the dominant military power of its era. The Armada, the Tercios, the most feared infantry formations in the world, an empire across 4 continents. That empire is gone. The instinct isn't. In 2026, it's backed by Eurofighters, Aegis frigates, and a prime minister willing to stand up to the most powerful country on earth. Same Spain, different weapons. And if you thought this was just about beaches and football, you might want to look at the map again.